I didn't find out about my maternal grandmother's line until several years ago. She never talked much about her father's line. Every once in a while, she would mention that her father had the good hair and that he was of native Indian heritage. She would also mention that her folks were from the eastern part of North Carolina. I started my journey in finding my ancestors. Come to find out, they were free people of color. I wondered why they ended up in western North Carolina. My research involved oral traditions, documents, and visiting the grave sites of my ancestors and associated families. When I interviewed several relatives, they mentioned us having an Irish Portuguese connection and other information. Thanks to my late cousin Thomas Dudley, I found a lot of information on our lineage. One of the most intriguing was of our ancestor Sarah Brooks, whose mother was a bondservant from Ireland and whose father was a free person of color from Maryland. In a court disposition, it tells how my ancestor Sarah Brooks was sent to live with a white family about 3 or 4 years old. After 5 or 6 years, Sarah was sent to live with John Gibson. Later on, John Gibson gave Sarah to James Martin. James, the plaintiff, claimed that Sarah Brooks was his property, meaning his slave. Townsend Harold, the defendant, testified on Sarah's behalf. This is from the Genealogical Society of Old Tryon County, the North Carolina Archives, Lincoln County Estate Files. Now, you may be asking, what does this have to do with the Great Dismal Swamp area? Back to my maternal grandmother mentioning that the family was from the eastern part of North Carolina. She could never explain the specifics, so I researched even further to make sense of it. In my research, I found that many families and some who intermarried with my Brooks line or lived in the same townships as my ancestors were from Cumberland, Robeson, Sampson, and Halifax counties. Some, like my Portuguese, Croatan, Cooper, and Clark's ancestors, were from the South Carolina-North Carolina border. The families were also free people of color and migrated from east to west. They were the Revels, Oxidines, Payne, Hunt, Hunter, Richardsons, Ashe, Roberts, Lynch, Collins, and Goins. As a matter of fact, the late legendary tennis player Arthur Ashe is a cousin of mine and is also a descendant of Sarah Brooks. There were other free people of color families, but these are the surnames that stood out to me. In the Indians of North Carolina, the letter from the Secretary of Interior and Indian Affairs, Hamilton McMillan, he mentions the line of immigration from the original seat on the coast was westward and can be traced as far west as the French Broad in Buncombe County, though many families of this tribe immigrated from the Lombard River a long while ago. Yet the locations of many of them have been located in western North Carolina with unerring certainty. The writer has been much interested in investigating the traditions prevalent among the Croatans and expresses his firm conviction that they are descended from the friendly tribe found on our eastern coast in 1587 and also descended from the lost colonists of Roanoke who were amalgamated with this tribe January 30th, 1914. Also, according to Robert K. Thomas, a report on the research of the Lumbee origin, he mentions that there are a few Lumbee offshoots and that he would like to visit soon. One group near Grouse in Lincoln County, North Carolina, another at Swannanoa near Asheville, and the last in Macon County near Franklin, North Carolina. I have come to the conclusion that our families were an amalgamation of free people of color, Maroons, and remnant native indigenous tribes who came together, formed communities in order to survive. My only guess is that they escaped in the swamps while in the eastern part of North Carolina and immigrated westward in the hills where there was a large Quaker community which provided a safe haven. Some of our families went back east and some of them stayed. I am one of the many descendants that stayed in the western part of North Carolina, and I am here to tell our story.